I am Diana Martinez Alexander. Want to make sure that we are live streaming. All right. I am Diana Martinez Alexander, and I am joined by Michelle Palmer, and we'll talk about um, our little setup tonight. So I'll pass it over to Michelle.
I, of course, forgot my headphones at work, and the sound on my laptop is not working, and I'm at a Starbucks, and so I'm having to be on a phone for the sound, and it's just going to be a challenge tonight, but we'll get it done.
All right, thank you, Michelle. If you don't know, we're both educators. This is something that we have chosen to do as volunteers to share information on timely topics as we move through these chaotic moments in our history. As Americans, we want to make sure that we're taking the opportunity and the tools that we have in order to share information, and that's a way of resistance. So I'm also going to introduce our lovely guest, Neil Aquino, who I've known for a number of years. He's a fine gentleman and a scholar, and I consider him one of our foremost experts on resistance and democracy in our Houston area. So I'm very happy to have him with us tonight.
Great. Thank you very much. You're very kind to both have me on. You guys put in so much effort in so many different ways. So I appreciate that I passed muster and that I am, and I appreciate everyone who's tuning in.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation this evening, and we'll just kind of like get started with the um, agenda for tonight. And I'm going to move this out of the way so y'all can see. Okay. All right. So our agenda for this evening, we want to do a little bit of Maddow style, give a little history to give some context to what we're up against and what we're doing, financial protests, but also showing up in a physical space with a physical protest and then other actions. And our hope is that before this event concludes, that you have an action in mind for yourself. Michelle, do you have anything else that we need to add to this agenda piece?
Not really. I just want to point out that there are a lot of things going on in Houston. I keep hearing people say Houston's the fourth largest big city in the country. Why aren't we doing anything? There are protests constantly, and I know that Neil
Yeah.
is going to talk about how there could be more of them.
hmm hmm
Absolutely.
Upshot. The next protest is when you organize it.
That's right. I
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone's written anything about that. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
me. Oh, okay. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yes, yes, that's right. That's right. So just to kind of hop back, we wanted to touch on the Montgomery bus boycott, which actually lasted 381 days. So, Michelle, I know that you're addressing, well, I know you're getting ready to do the 70s, but it, were you able to address this action in your class with your students?
Oh, absolutely. We did the 50s and 60s and 70s over the last couple of weeks, including today. And we absolutely covered this. My students did know Rosa Parks. They did know the Montgomery bus boycott, but they didn't know the details. They didn't know what happened later, the freedom rides, the sit-ins, the March on Washington. They knew, Martin Luther King and his speech, and a few of them knew Malcolm X and things like that. But they don't know as much as they should. And I love being able to provide them with that information. And then when we get later on and with the anti-war protests and all of that. They are absolutely fascinated, and so many of them, are asking me. These are 16, 17-year-olds. They are asking me, What can we do? Where can we protest? Why aren't we doing this?"
Right.
And I have to explain, we are. You
Yeah.
just don't have it because you're not following the right TikToks and the right Instagram pages. And I'm like, you just have to kind of search and find them, and they are out there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so one thing I want to mention about how they were able to last 381 days, right? Even with threats of losing their job, they had to organize and rely on each other by pooling, raising money for those who could drive, and like so they could help transport folks. And so they would do fundraisers, and all of that takes a lot of coordination and a lot of communication and a lot of community. And so what I'm seeing now is just right in our spaces is that people are craving that community, because you can't, if you don't have that community, then you can't stand up together. So that's one thing I just want to point out. And they really faced a lot of opposition in putting together this action, because they were the majority of the riders of the bus. So it caused great hardship for the transit system. And finally they had to relent, but it took time.
All right. I haven't read it yet. Waging a Good War, How the Civil Rights Movement Won Its Battles, 1954 to 68, by Thomas E. Ricks. And I bought
Okay.
this. Looks like it's very well reviewed. I bought this at the Visitor Center in between the Lincoln Memorial and the MLK monument. I hope it hasn't been closed
Yeah, let
since.
me show the book again, because I just stopped sharing.
It's
Okay. Okay.
Waging Good War, and they've probably purged it. Probably Elon Musk's biography now is in the space where they were selling that book, and the history of white South Africa is probably there. But but if you're looking for a book that details the nuts and bolts of many of the King campaigns, I am convinced this is a good source, though I have not yet read it. But it's a good author and well reviewed.
Excellent.
One thing I would like to say about the bus boycott in particular is that a lot of people don't realize
Oops.
that the original boycott was completely organized by women. It was a women's organization, including Rosa Parks, that went in and organized the original boycott. And then it was later taken over because they extended the time period by Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and other groups. The power of women cannot be denied, right?
I've been on. I'm glad you say that, because at the actions that I'm attending, the crowds are invariably 2/3, 3/4 women. And when I'm posting things on Facebook, and I'm actually finding Facebook a decent organizing tool for all its problems, the affirmations are so consistently 2/3, more so, women. So I would ask men to, further engagement, and some of it I think just has to do with engagement styles, but your active participation is needed.
Right. And a lot of people focus in on Rosa Parks, but I do want to mention that there were other women who also protested by sitting in the section they were not allowed to sit in. So I just want to point that out as well. It was a planned action, and that's another thing. Like, you're not just doing something without having the forethought and the structure in order to make your action successful. Okay, so that's important to say as well. Okay. Power of the pocketbook. So that kind of like leads us, we got led in from the bus boycott to this. Michelle, did you want to talk about those apps on the left side?
There are several amazing apps out there that you can download to your phone. And then I know Boycott, when you can scan a barcode, and it will tell you if it's a company that you should be boycotting, that sort of thing. It's hard to buy toilet paper in this country without supporting the Koch brothers, and I am not interested in supporting the Koch brothers. So I actually have to get my toilet paper online. But the boycott, I have not used Goods Unitas, but I've heard amazing things about them. There are really apps out there that'll make it easier because I know how hard boycotting is of products. It's easy to stay out of a store. It's a lot harder to figure out products, right? We all know Nestle, terrible, terrible company. We need to stay away from, but we may not know that they own hundreds of brands that in every field.
Right.
It is difficult to stay away from Nestle, but I manage it with my app. It is very difficult. They own a lot.
Yeah, all those Unilever companies, right? They're all
Yes,
part
yeah.
of that same brand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Neil,
Yeah.
anything there?
Yeah, I mean, these things are, these things are really difficult, and wasn't cognizant of the app, so I'll look at that. It's so difficult. I have this feeling that I can never quite define where I wish I knew how to live decently. I don't even know what I mean, but I know I mean something. Everywhere we go, it's all connected. The company owns 600
Mhm.
subsidiaries. Right? It's deeply frustrating, so I'm glad to hear about the apps. And this is one of the, for me, it's very, very difficult, because everything is just so cruddy. And
Right.
everything you buy, you feel like you're helping something that hurts you.
So I'm going to
I
give
was
us,
actually
go ahead, Michelle.
okay. I was actually talking about this the other day because I'm rewatching The Good Place, the sitcom The Good Place, which is
That's what I was
one of my
gonna mention.
favorites. I absolutely love it. But what you find out, like a couple of seasons in, it's not really a spoiler, is that nobody's going to the true good place anymore because of exactly what Neil just said. Because every action you take has so many negative consequences that it's impossible to have a positive, to be in the black, right? At the end. And so everybody ends up going to the bad place. But I was telling, I don't even remember who I was talking to the other day, but it was about that. And because we were talking about boycotts and how difficult it is. And it's a lot easier for us living in Houston, right? We have so many options. When you live in a small town, a rural area, it's a lot more difficult to boycott.
But the February 28th, I'll say this: the February 28th economic boycott, which was just conjured up by one guy in essence, um, it showed the ability to act collectively. So, there were stories out there about, I just took it as a test run. To me, everything is a test run till to the darker place. And so we saw so one of the things when I've written in my Houston Democracy Project blog, when you have the opportunity to act in solidarity with others, do it. So focus on the results, but we showed, people saw each other doing it, and now there's whatever the next act is, and we can continue to build.
That's right. And we're going to go back to that solidarity piece in just a moment. But I think when you were talking, Michelle, about things not necessarily having a direct result or having it be difficult, I think to be pointed and intentional about it, because I bet Costco had a whole bunch of people say, we are joining because you took the right side on this DEI issue, and we support that. And so that's evidence that they can take back to their shareholders, to their board of directors, and saying we made the right decision, and that is a profitable one for us because we did the right thing. So I think that we shouldn't underestimate that
Yeah.
positive effect on other companies who are wavering and saying, should we do it? Should we not do it? So we need to kind of elevate when we see those instances. Like I didn't put Penzies on here, but Penzies has been consistently critical of MAGA extremism for years. And I
Right.
know Michelle shops there. She shopped there for Christmas, right? Didn't you?
But Budweiser just wouldn't.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, just 100% of my Christmas gifts all came from Penzies. I was like, I'm just going to do it all in one place.
I was just going to comment that Budweiser pulled out of San Francisco Pride, if you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
And beer companies have been sponsoring Prides, back to the Reagan days. So that shows you. So we're in this war, and I don't use the word lightly. I use the word very intentionally, and we're in this war, and so we have to use every tool. So
Yes.
admitting the overwhelming premise that I just a lot of times I think about all the fresh water running through Houston, and that there's not a single clean place to fish, and we've created this unlivable world, and we're given these choices, and so we can't be resigned, and we just have to continue to fight. And obviously, Budweiser was responding to negative pressure, so I guess we can exert it more positively.
Yeah. So, someone actually watching this presentation right now got rid of their Tesla for another car because they just didn't want to have that car anymore. And people are currently in I believe, 28-day, maybe, I think it's 28 days, boycott for Amazon. I know that there's a boycott actively happening, and then also a boycott on Target. And Michelle, did you want to share about the numbers that we don't have that quite out yet?
Yeah, we know that there's been a decrease in traffic, but and we know that publicly traded companies have to release quarterly sales. So we will find out how effective this boycott has been. It just isn't going to happen just yet. And that's very frustrating for people who are new to this action, right? To this work. They get very frustrated that they don't know if it's working. It is working. We know that it is working. It's just, is it, how much of an effect, what percentage of an effect year over year are we going to have? I mean, I come from the retail world before I went into teaching. And they are going to feel it. They are feeling it. I mean, you walk into the Target literally across the street from my apartment, and it is empty a lot of the time.
And look how aggressively they're replying to Tesla. And it's important. Don't be scared off of protesting at a Tesla office. Be mindful. The one on Westheimer, in the 9,000 block of Westheimer, the sidewalk is 150, 200 feet from the door. You're well insulated from the perception that you're threatening anyone. And look, and look how aggressively the Trump folks are protecting Tesla. That they're clearly noticing something. I had a guy shout out at me at the Cornyn protest, "I'm going to go out and buy a Tesla," and I'm like, "Hey, that's $40,000 or whatever it is. You're not giving to Republicans, God bless you." And maybe it's a big trick. Yeah, go buy one. Maybe the bumper will fall off, and or maybe So, but
Need
obviously,
some glue?
What's that?
Need
The
some glue?
Yeah. So obviously that's impacting.
Right. And I think that we're going to talk about like some misconceptions, I think, about showing up physically. But in terms of financial, maybe you have used Amazon like a lot. And what if you're just more mindful and you decrease? That still makes a difference as well. And maybe you try to look for it somewhere else before automatically buying it from Amazon. We're not saying that this is like black and white. You do what you can, right? Like if there's only something you can get at such and such store, and you need it, then get it. But all we're kind of saying is like you have power in your purchases. And when we make these decisions to support corporations and by extension endorse their political stances, it does make a difference. So don't think that that's a non-factor. Anything else on this before, Michelle?
I I mean, I am an old hand at boycotting. Anyone that knows me knows I'm constantly boycotting something. I've been boycotting Walmart for 20 years, much to my mother's annoyance. And if you have a family and you cannot afford to not shop at Amazon, that is absolutely understandable. I know a lot of people who have basically done what Diana said, and they only get what they need from Amazon, right? They're no longer buying just that last minute, gotta have it, whatever, trinket or, power bars or whatever. They're just getting the things they need and then going maybe to HEB and getting other things or wherever they end up going. Any amount that you cut down is a win.
Right. Okay. All right. Going on to showing up. And I'm gonna take this off for a second. So I have some pictures here of different actions. I do want to highlight the photo at the bottom. That is from yesterday, correct, Neil?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to speak on that a little bit?
So that is yesterday's John Cornyn Houston office protest every Tuesday, 11:30 to 1, 5300 Memorial Drive. That was the 424th week of the Cornyn protest. We
Say
are
that
there.
again. Say that part again.
That's the 424th week. So that's 8 years and 6 weeks, or 8 years and 8 weeks,
Yeah.
or something like that. And the purpose of the Cornyn protest, I believe at core, is for people to see others like themselves willing to stand, is headed to emergency powers, martial law. I believe this is going to require millions of people on the street. And we have been for 8 years setting that example. And I want to point out, people, I've had some people comment to me in the last few weeks, oh, your crowds are bigger. And that's good. That's good. But, alternative structures are difficult to maintain. So when you're organizing and you only get 3 people, you only get 6 people, it doesn't sustain to the third week. That's a hell of a thing that you got 3 people. That's a hell of a thing that you got 6 people or lasted 3 weeks. Alternative structures are very difficult to maintain. No one's being paid. And so there's a core group of 10 to 15 people, and then we get intermittent people like yourselves, and then folks who just show up as a one-off. And that, so to me, more impressive than any crowd is the ability to sustain it for 8 years and to not be daunted if you're there and there's only 7 people and it's raining. It's whatever you're doing and you're trying and you got somebody, maybe just yourself, that's a success.
Now, as I recall, I think you met Daniel Cohen, who is the founder of Indivisible Houston, as you were protesting alone on a corner, what, in like 2016, 2015?
I had a sign. Yeah. I had just left the same retail establishment Michelle worked at. And so I was doing, so it's kind of an art protest thing almost. And so yes, I was walking on Westheimer with a sign, and Daniel passed me by and pulled on over. Yeah.
What can you just remind me what year that was, just so we can have
2016.
2016, so we can have
Yeah.
that documented on the
Yeah.
record. So so I want to mention that not only is there the weekly protest at Cornyn, a number of new actions have popped up recently, which I'm really excited about. And we've kind of been talking, I've been talking on my social media about how a lot of this has been driven and sustained by women, organized women. And much like the Montgomery bus boycott, women know how to get shit done. Okay, not to say that our male compatriots are in our nibblings, don't have their own skill set, but for sure, there's a protest at the Social Security office now, I believe every Friday.
13302 Westheimer at Westheimer and Eldridge every noon, organized by Martha Kamish, Indivisible
Yes.
Katie Hubble, 12 to 1. And that corner, that's a hell of a corner. Westheimer and Eldridge, and we had a ton of young Black and Latino support, or just a ton of working class Black and Latino support far outside the loop. And it made me regretful that some of our that the Democratic Party and some of our electeds are not more aggressive in organizing and trying all throughout the county.
Right. And sometimes I feel like they'll join in if this is if there's and long enduring action, but it would be great to have them on the front lines and organizing this and putting their like immediate stamp on it. So I want to just point out that on Valentine's Day, I had professional development. So I think like I had already done the training, so I could take the day off, is what I'm trying to say. So it was a Friday. So I said, well, let's give some love to public schools. And because I know this voucher issue is coming up, and some people know about it, and some people don't. So I thought I want to make sure that Lacey Hull understands that she's not able just to act on the vouchers without hearing from us. So we went to her office and protested outside, which is on the I-10 feeder right past Gessner. So a high traffic area. Boy, y'all, it was windy. It was so windy. It was so windy. Like my sign, like it was hard with the wind. But anyway, I was able to get in that cold weather on the 14th of February, like at least 7 people total out there, all with our signs. And we did get a lot of visibility, a lot of honks, a lot of, like support. And in the grand scheme of things, it was building our community. It was getting the point across and also confirming those who are against vouchers that they're not alone. So it's
Yes,
part
right.
of building that momentum. Michelle, did you want to add in something here?
A couple of things. There are a lot of organizations, as said earlier, in the Houston area doing these actions, and they're doing little actions, but they're doing a lot of them. And, Neil talked about Facebook. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them still on a few of them on Twitter. Blue Sky is starting to have quite a bit of Harris County individuals on there, including the three of us. You can find them all over the place. And I know it's hard to find, but if you search, you will find them. If you don't want to go out on a limb and start your own, which you absolutely should do. Diana, Neil, and I have all started our own demonstrations of various types, and we'll all do it again. It doesn't take a special kind of person to do it. It just takes a person that cares.
So I just wanted to kind of highlight what these events are. This event and this event over here were in 2018, Families Belong Together protest, which, was very timely, and now it's timely again. I was very grateful to be one of the lead organizers of this protest, and we had a big turnout, and it was one of the most stressful things and exciting things that I've ever done in my life. And also, if you look at this is from the Day Without Immigrants on February 3rd that happened here in, was it February 3rd? Sorry, February 2nd was the march, and then February 3rd was the day when kids stayed home from school. And I know that you had reduced attendance at your campus. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yeah, we had a good almost 20% absence, and we have very high attendance. So that was very unusual and upset my principal, but I was all for it.
Yes, and on my campus, I believe we had 70% attendance, which we usually have 93% attendance. So that was a significant, or maybe 70, 94, but that was a pretty significant hit. So let's talk a little bit about people's misconceptions or fears
Mhm.
when they're showing up in a physical space, because
Mhm.
I think that that deters people from coming
Yeah.
out. They have these ideas of, it being dangerous. And believe me, you need to be aware, and there's some definite things to do. But let's speak on that a little bit.
Yeah. So for one thing, it's basically safe. Well, one thing I've just been very clear about lately is there is no guarantee of safety, and so that's not a rebuttal of your point. But I used the word war earlier. I mean, you know, this is serious stuff, and I think there's clearly a significant number of Trump supporters who feel that we can restore Jim Crow, um, roll back the gains for women, and this is high stakes for them. I mean, you see all the resentments post Lyndon Johnson and post Appomattox playing out here, and
Throwback,
so
Appomattox.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and so there is no promise of safety. At one of the Tesla protests, further up north, wherever it was, um, someone up in here in town, someone drove into them. Now there was a sheriff watching, and the sheriff apparently was very good and arrested them. No one was hurt, but they veered their car. I have had things thrown. The Cornyn protest has had many different things thrown at us. Not, I guess, so many in the context of 8 years. Although I know most people aren't used to having anything thrown at them. Um, but I think one thing you need to do is accept that there is some risk at this point. Um, and but as a general matter, you go out in the corner, you yell, you hold sign, you're in an action, and it's as safe as driving on a Houston street with a red light runners. Um, that's what I've been saying. When people have been saying I'm not sure it's safe, obviously you don't need to take any extra risk. You need to be mindful of who's around you. You need to be mindful of who might be a provocateur. I'm not aware of any of that happening here. I've wondered if some of the Teslas that have been vandalized have been done by people on the right. Um, but I think the upshot is whether you're marching, whether you're on a corner, holding a sign, it's safe. It's safe, and there's no guarantee of total safety.
Right. And Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you in just a moment, but um, I think you make a good point, Neil, in saying that, it doesn't go without risk, but we are not typically doing anything to put ourselves at risk, at
Right.
extreme risk, okay? Or moderate risk even. I think,
Mhm.
at the Cornyn protest, you've remarked and spoken at much length about the police presence at
Mhm.
your action. And I want to let people know, if they're not familiar with the Cornyn protest that's been going on for 8+ years, we're talking about a group of mostly retired folks
Mhm.
who, sometimes in the heat they need to sit in the shade because the
Mhm.
sun is too extreme for them. They come out in the rain, they come out in the inclement weather. And I believe there's only been a handful of times where the protest has actually been canceled, maybe three.
We canceled it for Harvey when we moved it to different days because of rain. Only Harvey canceled it, and I'm glad you brought up the police. The police are not your friends. I'm not. I'm not. I don't have to be. I always try to be very fair because you don't have to be unfair to tell the story. Um, they are mindful of First Amendment rights. Some may convey a measure of agreement with what you're doing. Some may be professional. But they are there to de-escalate. They're very focused on if there are counter protesters. That's a big thing for them. They are very focused on property. They value, private property. You're out there protesting because you're afraid your granddaughter is going to be prosecuted for miscarriage, and they care about private property. As a general matter, they are not aggressive, except frequently, if they perceive the protest as anti-police, they're more aggressive, and they can be very aggressive if if you're in the street, the actual street.
Right. And also I know that when you're at the protest that everyone is very mindful of any pedestrians, any runners, any
Sure.
cyclists, making sure that we're not impeding traffic on the sidewalk, because that would be something that would maybe merit more attention from the police, because
Mhm.
maybe they're looking for a reason to,
Sure.
especially as we um, realize just how hostile Mayor Whitmire is to these types of actions, and he's shown that through his pursuance, his pursuit um, and ticketing of those what is it called?
Food not bombs.
Food not bombs. Their weekly feedings
Right.
at the library. And so I didn't know if either one of you wanted to add anything in.
Uh, uh,
Sorry, Neil.
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
I mean, the three of us have all been doing this for a long time. And we've, seen things happen, but it is rare. I know that some people were worried about that one protest that I did outside of the George R. Brown, the readathon, because it was literally outside of a venue where the governor of Florida was going to be speaking. And so people were a little leery of it. But it was perfectly fine. Some of them even came out and had conversations with us about why we were there and things like that. It is rare for violence to come from these events. And that really shouldn't be a reason that keeps you out, because if you see violence happening, you leave. If that is an issue for you, you leave. That is always going to be an option. It's not like we're imprisoned in the little area where we are protesting. So
once in a while, but yeah, generally not. Yeah,
generally, that's true.
You were sometimes.
That's true. I remember the 1992 Republican convention when it was in town. We were kind of in an area that we weren't allowed out of, so it was frustrating.
You're gonna get another shot at that in 3 years. Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So don't let that hold you back. If you want to protect your rights, your kids' rights, other people's rights, if you have this empathy that you want to express, then join us. And there are probably 10 or more opportunities a week that I hear about, and probably another 10 or more that I don't hear about until after they're over, because I see pictures on Instagram or a TikTok or something.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of speak to that right now under resources, because it is important for people to feel connected. If you're not following one of us, because we share things on social media, there are places for you to learn more. So I went ahead and just kind of assembled some, but there are more that I didn't get to put on here. I meant to put a few more, but Indivisible, who wants to kind of speak on what Indivisible is?
Well, they're coming back. So they were. I want to make sure I say the right things. They've been a little not as active
locally.
Yeah, locally. And I focus on local. um, Daniel Cohen, and others as well. Indivisible, it went dormant. That's like a cicada, dormant for a time, and now is there's still Daniel's still presence, but there's some new people coming, and so Indivisible seems to be. I would use the term revving up,
There you go.
like a race car, revving
Yes.
up.
Yes.
And I also say, Neil Aquino, that's me, and I bought the domain HoustonDemocracyProject.com. So you can also put HoustonDemocracyProject.com
And I looked up the Houston Democracy Project and this address came up.
That could be, but well, good. That's fine. Good.
Yes. So you're famous now, Neil.
I am. Yeah. Well, that was the original one, and and if you know about an action, share it. If you know, so people say, if you know about something, share it with someone whom might be interested.
Right. Right. And the thing is that, it kind of catches on, right?
Yeah.
Like people get really excited with big events like seeing Harris at the Dynamo Stadium, right?
Right. Right.
And once you go, then you feel more inclined that you can do something else too. So if you are interested in learning how to rally and organize, and it could be as something as simple as going to a school board meeting, if you know that they're you gonna are considering policy that would be harmful to, say, the LGBTQIA community, or moving on banning books or anything like that. You want to get people involved, and people will get involved if they hear it from you. They'll be more inclined, your circles, right? And then I put Mobilize on here, and Mobilize is as a platform where a lot of organizations, I use Mobilize for all of my events. And because postcard parties, or that event like I mentioned at Lacey Hull's office, you know the protests at this and that, there you go. So you can get connected in your area, not just here in Houston, outside of Houston, somewhere else. You can look and see what's happening near you.
Yeah. Yeah. You sure can. And um, life is public. A lot of life is. I find that people have. Sometimes you'll see like you'll do big canvassing or phone banking. How did you get my number? Well, you voted. You registered to vote. That's how I got your number. And people, I think as people, and especially in this day and time where people are so worried about privacy and they're just tired of life and everything's a pain in the ass. But this requires some public being out there. It just does. You unfortunately you live in this moment, and you see the law firms cave. You see the electeds are silent. Local electeds,
Columbia University,
the universities, all these things. And all of these, as grassroots organizers, we've been told to defer our public policy aspirations, our organizing abilities, to accept the absence of resources, all to sustain systems that couldn't prevent authoritarianism, screwed up the weather along the way, and caved when pressed. And so now it's our time. And so I'm very focused with the Houston Democracy Projects to tell electeds that, hey, you signed up. At this point, you have, I don't care if dog catcher to mayor of Houston or county judge, that we need protection from the state of Texas. We need protection from the federal government. You cannot leave us. You cannot. Al Green is very specifically saying protest. That's why I've been embracing him. He said, Congress's weak knee. Don't wait. The small decentralized actions we're talking about, or even the big 50501 indivisible protest on April 5th at City Hall, don't have clear and visible leaders, just like the economic boycott didn't. These are decentralized actions, people led, electeds very wary, transference of risk from the electeds and the institutions that benefit and won't fight to us, with our own police watching us closely in cities where we share the predominant value. a Democratic city, a Democratic county, and we have to include in our conversation what the police will or will not do. So I think we just have to accept this is a public era, and if you're gonna and you're gonna be out there, you gotta be out there.
Michelle?
I wanted to point people towards a different option to mobilize that seems to have started having these sorts of things. This is not in any way what it was invented for, but Meetup has started having organizations on it that have protests. I know of 2 here in the Houston area that's where they do their work. They do everything through Meetup. And so, there are options out there all over the place. And you can look for
They
them.
use WhatsApp, they use
Sure.
Discord, all of those
Yeah,
platforms are being used
absolutely.
to spread this information. And
Yeah.
I think, just kind of being wary about where you put information as well. Just be thoughtful and mindful of it. You
Mhm.
want to be careful. But I think also when you're speaking about elected officials and their participation in these actions, right? Um, I think we've all run for office. Is that correct?
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, another form of resistance is also making that leap and figuring out if you want to run for something.
Mhm.
Because we are the heroes that we're looking for. There's no one coming to save us. And I think that Neil probably wants to say more on that because I think this is something that you've
No,
talked about at length.
I can't really improve on that. No, I think that's the theme we've been hitting. It's this program is living proof of it. It's up to
Yeah.
us. It really is up to us. I can't stress it enough. You in the mirror. That's who it's up to.
I am 100% disappointed in the Democratic leaders in this county. I am right there with you, Neil. I teach in U.S. history about the bully pulpit, right? And in my government class about the bully pulpit and the power of an elected official, that they can have. And ours, other than Al Green, are absolutely wasting it. And we need better elected officials. A friend of all of ours said a while back, elect Democrats, then elect better Democrats. And we are to that second part now. We need to elect Democrats who will uphold the values that we truly believe in and fight for us and the children of this country and this city and this county and everything. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that we never see a single city council member at any of these protests, or
No, very
hardly any
rarely.
of them.
Very
Yeah.
rarely. And
Uh,
I like. No, go ahead. Did I interrupt? I'm sorry.
You're good.
I wanted to go off your bully pulpit statement because that's associated with Teddy Roosevelt, and so I keep hearing, you will hear electeds reference themselves as in the arena. Gene Wu is a specialist at this. Hierarchical, top down. They'll use this. So Teddy Roosevelt wrote about the man in the arena. Frequently, they won't use the word man anymore. But you will hear elected say, Councilwoman Abby Kamen today referenced how I watch council sessions. You should all watch city council sessions on Houston television, HTV. How this is a part-time job and made it like she was doing us a favor by being there. There are a lot of elected officials who they use the term in the arena, beyond the fact that the person in the arena was a slave, that was a gladiator. A lot of electeds have very elevated conceptions of themselves and are very isolated. I mean, you think about our electeds, our city council people, they are elected every 4 years, super low turnout elections. Their connection to democracy is tenuous to begin with. And our electeds, we've been seeing these tours with Bernie and AOC, but what I've been seeing is that the people supporting these tours don't even necessarily aren't progressive or Bernie supporters. They just want someone to act. I swear, if two centrist Democrats took a tour saying, hey, we're going to increase turnout. If Carol Alvarado and Rodney Ellis, sitting on $10 million between them, went to Tomball and Cyprus and in all the places, went to the Bay, hey, we're going to invest $50,000 here for a turnout effort because we just want a functional party. They would be greeted as like American troops under the Eiffel Tower, and at the end of the war. The we just want functional electeds.
Yeah. So I do want to say for transparency that I'm currently running for school board in Spring Branch ISD right now, as part of a slate with two other fine, upstanding citizens, David E. Lopez and Patricia Cabrera. We are all part of the leadership of an organization called Somos Spring Branch. We all live north of I-10. We are all connected to the Spring Branch community and see what the lack of representation has done to our community. So we are using this moment to speak up for our community. You may have your own personal reason for wanting to run for office, or you may have your own personal reason for supporting someone else who's running for office. The choice for you to do something, assist, support, step up, that's up to you, but you better bet it makes a fucking difference, period. Especially now. They want to undermine any semblance of hope and community and solidarity that we have. And that is why building the community and working together and rising up together, encouraging each other at this time is even more important.
Absolutely. It is scary to run for office the first time, right? I mean, it's scary. But it's not that big of a deal. I mean, Diane and I done it a couple of times. I know Neil has done it as well.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a while back, right?
Yeah,
in another lifetime, in another city.
Yeah, 30 years ago.
And even if it's a race, you have no chance of winning. Like, I feel like the one I am running for regularly. It's important to get your message out, to get this side's message out. We cannot leave their gerrymandered districts and the people in those gerrymandered districts to their own devices. We can't. We need to give them something to strive for. We need to educate them on the issues, because if they're only hearing one side of it, even if they agree with you, they don't know that side, that there is anyone. We also kind of become a rallying point for people, for them to find other people like them in their district. And, all of that is important. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I'm always going to think that educating people on the issues is important. But that rallying point, you being the way that they find each other, is so important. It's the reason I argue with people about yard signs. People say yard signs are a waste of money. Yard signs are a way for you to recognize others that are like you. And I think that's important, especially if you live in a red precinct, in a red district. It's very frustrating.
About the yard signs that I put out all the yard signs, and I've said this before, because if I put out, like, I'm talking all the full length of my yard.
Yeah.
If I do that, and sometimes double layer, if I do that, then someone else who wants to put up one sign won't feel nervous about it. So that is a part of it. And I also want to point out my pin here. Whenever I go out on the weekends or if I'm just out in public, not at work, obviously, I have my my Trump pin on because I want people to know and build that solidarity because even going out in red spaces, people want to know that there's someone who also feels the same way. And I've gotten confirmation of that multiple times and they've talked to me and just whispered, "Hey, I like your pin." Because they can't speak out, but it adds to that community and we need, like I said, we need that.
Yeah, and I'll say if you're not running for office, don't give away your endorsement for nothing. Um, so we have this congressional 18 race, and so Christian Menefee and Amanda Edwards, you know, people who will you support me, or people who announce. I'm talking about rank and file Democrats, or maybe a precinct chair, anyone, just a regular voter, but also a precinct chair or someone with a measure of local prominence. And I'm for so and so. I'm like, well, Mr. Menefee, Miss Edwards, um, what permanent resources are you going to put in to increasing voter turnout in District 18
Right.
consistently? And this is true of my Senate District 15 has low turnout. And what resources are you going to put in to change this? And I'm not asking for. I'm not asked. They'll turn it into. I'm not speaking specifically of Menefee or Edwards. The Democratic establishment will make it like you want. Oh, you're giving me the Communist Manifesto. No, I just want a. You have reduced me to wanting nothing more. My values are so defeated that I'm coming to you, just literally asking you to run a functional, good turnout, functioning party rather than, the 26 years I've had John Whitmire as senator in a majority minority district, leaving no structure, navigating the systems with millions of dollars, leaving nothing to build the party and occupying this hugely important office of Texas state senator.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Michelle.
Okay. So for those of you unaware, part of what Neil is talking about is the fact that at least in Texas, at least in our part of Texas, safe Democratic districts have very low turnout.
Right.
It's like people feel like, I got mine. I don't need to protect any county-wide Democrats. I don't need to help actually flip this state. And I have been arguing for years that is how we flip this state.
Right.
We actually get Democrats in Democratic districts to actually go out and vote.
That's why we're losing
It is ridiculous.
judges.
In conjunction with building up infrastructure in non-voting areas, which I would not consider Spring Branch a non-voting area, but I would say it's an undervoting area because of systemic issues such as not encouraging voter registration in the high schools to the fullest degree possible. Michelle, I know you're going to have something to say about that. Just do it.
Same with Aldine. It is so low voter turnout, and they're majority minority areas.
Yeah.
That's what Spring Branch and Aldine have in common.
Right.
Cypress.
Yeah. So, addressing that and being honest about what we can do as a community to engage folks. And I think that there are those conversations happening. So I do just, and we've kind of structured this conversation for folks who are new to the game, but maybe also some who've been around the block. Because I know many people have been to several actions, participated, led, helped organize, or whatever. But I think for us now, because I had to reset after the first administration, and kind of get my mind ready for take two, right? And how am I going to operate differently than I did the first time? Because I went out and I joined all the things and I was desperate because I just thought this can't be. And so I did everything I could, but I got burnt out.
Right.
So now, I'm being more intentional and thoughtful about my time and my choices.
Right.
I think that other people are also having that same dilemma and, you know, a definite focus on mental health this time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I
Yeah, this
think,
is a big mental health crisis for
yeah,
millions of people. Yeah. And you should admit that to yourself. It's a terrible mental health crisis. You're losing your freedom, or you're losing, if you didn't feel you had all your freedom, you're losing the prospect, the hope that you might be free. This is a terrible mental health crisis. Just
right.
awful.
So participating in something is actually, to me, it does make me feel like
Mhm.
I'm taking steps forward. I'm not helpless. It's not hopeless because as long as there is fight and as long as there is that spirit of resistance, we move forward. Neil, did you say to me, what, I don't know, long time ago? It's 3 words and you say it constantly.
I say stay the course because Ronald Reagan used to say it. The stay
That's
the
it.
course. From the, you do have to stay the course. Whatever, as long as you're acting in good faith, whatever you're doing is right. As long as you're acting in good faith and trying, whatever you're doing is right. There's no set guideline, and I think in this circumstance where we are, for us, in uncharted waters
Yeah,
of, I know all our history, and I know I haven't lived our history, but I know our history,
yeah,
and we are, we are headed towards new shit. And whoever first uttered the cliche, showing up is half the battle. And showing up is intellectually hard. Pacing yourself, finding the event, dragging yourself out there. It's hot as hell. It's 8 months a year, and showing up is a real intellectual exercise in itself, and shouldn't be diminished.
so going back over our agenda, because we're over time, um, I hope that you have a little bit more information on ways to protest financially, ways to show up physically, and other actions. And I would also say that sometimes just having a well placed and thoughtful conversation with someone is another way to resist, or
Uh huh.
even saying, I
Yeah.
don't agree,
Yeah.
and saying that if that, even with someone, it's hard to say that, but saying, no, that's not my view. Okay. So
Mhm.
hopefully now you have an idea of an action that you want to take for yourself. And if you've done one thing, then maybe you want to do something else and kind of just continue on, and that's how you build that resistance muscle, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Somebody once compared it to a choir, because all of us I know get very tired of constant protests, right? Of being at them. And so they talked about a choir and how a choir can hold a note forever because different people are dropping out and taking a breath and getting back in at a different time.
Mhm.
And I know that we have all had to do that. I know that Neil goes back home and visits family every once in a while, and Diana and I have both had to take mental health breaks on the regular, both as teachers and as educators. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with giving yourself grace
Yeah.
as much as we give each
Mhm.
other grace.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And give each other grace too. Don't, rather than critiquing someone else's action, organize your own.
Right.
uh, you know, and don't be, just stay the course and come to terms with, we're living in a risky era. This is
Right.
this is this is
Right.
what it is. This
Yeah.
is what it is.
And notice that we didn't like mention spending any money other than what you'd already spend for your household. Like this doesn't necessarily cost money. I mean, it does take the time and maybe loss of work or employment opportunities for folks. So we get that, but do what you're capable of doing. And also it's so much more fun when you do it with a friend or someone that you
Mhm.
care about, because it builds that enjoyment, and you come in with that connection already. But there's always like more connections to be made, and you're like, yeah, I love your sign, and da 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 da. And so people are looking for that, especially in these moments. um Thanks so much for this conversation, everybody.
Right. Mhm. Thank you. Well, you guys are really, you two are really kind to have me on. I appreciate it. You folks run a solid shop in many ways.
But I
And go
think
to
this is a topic we couldn't have covered without
HoustonDemocracyProject.com.
you.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
say it again. I would say it
I was
again.
going to say, I don't think this is a topic we could have covered without you, Neil.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Well, the cemetery is filled with indispensable people, but the Houston, I actually, when I go home to Cincinnati, I always go to Spring Grove Cemetery, which is beautiful. But it has all these famous names of department stores and Cincinnati streets and mayors. And I'm like, oh yeah, there you are. There I'll be. But Houston Democracy, I'm sorry, I don't find it morbid, but I understand. HoustonDemocracyProject.com, HoustonDemocracyProject.com. I'm also on the Egberto Willies Politics Done Right show every Thursday morning at 6 on KPFT 90.1. You can stream it, and then it's on Egberto's YouTube page throughout the week.
Excellent. And of course, you can join Neil in person at the
Mhm.
Corn and Protest at 5300 Memorial every Tuesday from 11:30 to 1 p.m.
Mhm.
And it's a fine time with some fine
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, extra
And
signs and everything. We're a
yes,
friendly crew. Whatever you do is right.
yes. And I enjoy going out there when we can. I know we
Mhm.
joined for spring break.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
So, all right, Michelle, anything else you wanted to add?
Just don't be afraid to take a chance. There
Mhm.
are a ton of little, like, go to one of the little Tesla or the Social Security protests. They're small. You won't feel overwhelmed. They're perfectly safe.
Mhm.
They're in places that have lots of parking, which is important.
Mhm.
Um, just break out of your shell and try one.
Right. And if you really want to go big, there's the April 5th action at City Hall. And I
Yeah.
hear that there are alternative locations for that if you don't want to make it all the way to City Hall.
Mhm.
So
That's going to be
I'm
big, I think.
Yes,
Spread word.
I
I
think
think so.
so. And it's
Yeah.
gonna be national, and
Yeah.
it's something that they cannot avoid, much like Majorie
Yeah.
Green, sorry,
Right.
avoiding those reporter questions about Skiffgate or Signalgate. There we go, Signalgate. They didn't use a skiff, that was a problem. Um, so, and a skiff is a top secret place for folks to have confidential conversations. Anyway, so we are building something here. And if you haven't felt it yet, you're going to.
Mhm.
People are already getting more involved and connecting in ways because they see the threat. And if you have someone who doesn't, hopefully you can talk some sense into them.
Mhm. Yep.
So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all.